and Jenny on ABC Newcastle.
It's 21 to 8. Should kids be allowed on social media platforms? If you have kids or teenagers, you might have your own household rules around this. You're not worried about what the government is saying, what the talk is in terms of minimum ages. You're like, nope, my child is not getting it until they are a certain age.
Yes, and even then it probably comes with some conditions around monitoring what apps they can have and can't have. But this discussion is happening nationally with the various federal political parties at least considering whether or not there should be a restriction on kids under 16. For young people who are on social media, what does it do in their life? What does it mean for their sense of their self, their body image, their identity? This is a fascinating area of research that happens at the University of Newcastle. Julia Coffey is a member of the Newcastle Youth Studies Group, an Associate Professor of Sociology at our local university. Good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Coffey, we know teens are going through a formative period of their life. Those years matter. How does social media impact them?
Well, it's such an interesting and broad issue for them and a broad area of research. So young people themselves that I've been speaking to really are aware of the fact and talk about how they are the first generation to grow up with social media, from birth. And they are actively trying to figure out how to negotiate it in their own lives. So it's really complex. This is something that certainly young people don't feel strongly one way or another about in terms of being positive or negative. It's a complex part of their lives. They feel like there are some potential issues, certainly with its potential to exacerbate body image concerns or negative comparisons. Certainly misogynistic content is a massive problem and can, intensify existing issues in society, right, around gender inequality primarily. But I certainly think that the idea or the concept of banning social media is incredibly simplistic. And as Leo Pugliese said last week, he's the Six News presenter. Obviously,
a teenager himself. Obviously, no one has spoken to anyone under the age of 30 about this when it was proposed or the idea. It has not come from young people. And I think young people would certainly be opposed to it for a range of reasons. And I could talk about some of those if you like.
Yes, please, because isn't the point that under 16s maybe, and look, I accept that under 16-year-olds will hate hearing me say this, but isn't the point that before that age they need adults to intervene in some of these matters and make decisions on their behalf?
Sure. I mean, this is, like you said in the intro, a really important topic around every dinner table, right? That's navigated by parents and young people and friends, and adults are all talking about this at schools. I've got young children myself. But yeah, I think the idea to ban it at a national level is quite alarming because there's a range of practical considerations. I don't know if they would be talking about banning, access to the internet. This is something that it would be incredibly difficult to shut down. I mean, which sites are we talking about? What exactly about social media are we talking about here? And I think it's important to note that young people rank social media very low on the list of personal concerns to them. They might rank issues of gender inequality and body image quite highly, but they don't see that social media is the cause of those issues. Right? These issues exist already in society. Banning social media and access to social media will not, unfortunately, be the silver bullet to these issues. There are much broader conversations we need to be having about gender inequality and other issues that young people are actually most concerned about. So the most issue of concern for young people is environment and climate change. Right? This is what surveys have shown over the last 10 years. And if we are really thinking about major threats to young people and what concerns them and what we should be spending our time and effort on, it's these much bigger, more difficult issues to solve that really matter to young people, and addressing them and taking young people seriously will go a long way to helping them contribute more positively and have more positive lives.
One of the things we heard from the E-Safety Commissioner last week was about toxic masculinity, and you've mentioned the misogynistic content that can come through on social media. The E-Safety Commissioner wants more regulation when it comes to that and wants to see the platforms themselves take some more responsibility. Is that a conversation you'd rather see rather than a ban?
Absolutely. I mean, social media companies, platforms have a huge amount of power here, and we know that they ban certain forms of content. Although obviously with Twitter becoming X, that content stopped becoming banned, and that's a major problem. So we do have a lot of power concentrated in the hands of these platforms, and I would certainly like to see more being done to moderate this kind of content, particularly this. It's not difficult to pick up misogynistic, violent content. It's pretty obvious, and I think the onus should be put on the companies and platforms to moderate it, rather than just removing young people from sites of really important conversation and solidarities, connections. You know, young people talk about how social media is actually one of the key forms that they help support themselves to be able to get through difficult times. You know, this is where they connect with people, they connect and form solidarities over issues that they really care about, that filters out into other kinds of action and community. So I think removing young people from those community spaces and the options and possibilities that come with being digital citizens would be incredibly simplistic and completely over the top.
Gosh, it feels as though we've only just begun the conversation. Thank you for telling us what your research has found from the young people you're speaking to about the issues that are important to them and how they feel about their lives online. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks, anytime.
Thank you. Dr. Julia Coffey, member of the Newcastle Youth Studies Group and Associate Professor of Sociology at the University of Newcastle. Ian's at the Hill, and you heard Dr. Coffey say there, what apps are we talking about? Ian's like, I use Strava to map my bicycle rides. I can add comments and photos. That app is a form of social media. What apps are we talking about banning children from using? Yes, I don't know many 13-year-olds, but some would be using Strava potentially to map some bicycle rides or runs. So he's asking about that, and Mitch is saying I think there should be some sort of restrictions. Social media has definitely changed in the last few years. The majority is absolute garbage full of fake news.